All right, my guest today is a world-class leader in sales and business and consulting, business development. He's led corporations to award-winning high-performance sales team, as well as pioneered profitable development programs for his own companies that are actually nationally accredited. He specializes in training business executives, companies, and corporations on methods and sales techniques he's developed over the years on adopting both sides of the buyer-seller relationship. He's currently contracted by 37 different trade schools around the world, which have seen radical transformations in record-breaking enrollment numbers, and most importantly, completion ratios. A few years after branching out on his own independently, Chris started consulting for companies all over the world. And he began to take his talents and honed in on his craft of also selling high-ticket programs, which he was able to produce over $1 million in generated revenue each month for more than 3 years straight. That is insane, folks. Chris also is employed by multi-billion-dollar educational corporations and earned several individual national sales professional awards for his sales performances, including awards leading regional admission division to all-time record-breaking results. He went on to found his own consulting agency called TR Consulting Agency, the industry's first and only nationally accredited program that provides students with the comfort of knowing his company is audited by regulatory agencies a few times a year. And recently, he's launched his world-famous podcast show, The Win-Win Effect, where he shares proven strategies he used to make such an impact in his own sales career. So, everybody, I want you to welcome to the show Mr. Chris Ross, all the way over in London, England. Chris, how are you today?
I'm doing well, doing really well. Top of the morning to you, I guess you would say.
Yeah, I mean, you have like the best background. Like, that is an amazing background. I love your background there where your office is at. So welcome to the show. It's an honor. I've been wanting to have you on the show here just because of your consulting success, but also like your sales success. You know, when you were just like a 1099 or W-2 sales rep, and how many millions of dollars revenue you sold every month, not year, but month. So what I wanted to do before we dive into some questions, can you tell our listeners maybe a little bit more about how did you get into sales, and how did you learn all those skills to get so good and make so much money? How did that all happen?
Well, it happened over time, to be honest with you. And first, before I dive into that, I just want to say thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. I mean, our worlds collided a long time ago, and we've always had a lot of mutual respect for one another, and I really appreciate our friendship.
Likewise.
But just to give the listeners more of an idea, just like every other person in America was born in the 80s, when you graduate high school, you have two options: go to college or you go into the military. Yeah. Okay, so I chose the route of the military and served for 5 years, did a couple different deployments and whatnot. When I left, went to college and graduated a chemical engineering degree, which I don't use, obviously. Sure. So that kind of gave me an idea of how I felt. Mm-hmm. So when I got involved in sales, I was always in sales for some reason. I don't know why. It's something always just kept like pushing me towards the sales side of the division and corporations. Yeah. Did very well for myself. Started off, in chemical sales, selling chemicals. Sure. Branched off and got into, was a regional director or whatnot, and then got involved with education. About 2008, when the market kind of crashed, so did the chemicals. Okay. You can't really sell a lot of chemicals. So I got involved in education. So I've been in sales probably over about 16 years now.
Wow.
And just absolutely love it. But when you're working with educational companies, it's a different type of thing. You have to make sure you're focusing on the right qualifications of each one of your prospective buyers or prospective students in that situation. Yeah. Because it's not about them enrolling into a 50K program. Uh-huh. It's about them enrolling into a program and them doing extremely well during that process, honing in on their craft. Right. Then when it gets to pass and review, they have to go to career services and then go get placed in a job. So to give everybody an idea, and I think that's where I honed in on my craft on being able to qualify a prospective buyer when I'm talking to them, because I'm listening for potentially what they're not saying. So I hope that gives you a little bit more clarity on my background. But yeah, I absolutely love sales. Sales.
And one of the biggest reasons I wanted you to have on the show, as you know, on our show, closers are losers. Like, not that if you're making sales, you're a loser. Obviously, that's not the case. It's just if you're still using old school closing and sales techniques from the dinosaur ages of selling, you are losing sales in our day and age 100%. So when I meet people like you that have had so much success in sales, not just as your company, but when you were in sales, when you were in the trenches, and I know that you were making over $100,000 a month in commissions. I don't know the exact number. Maybe you can tell us, in commissions when you were a salesperson. Tell us about that real quick.
Here's the thing about sales and about the commissions and, what you make. I believe that the greatest currency you can have is the effect you have on others.
Yeah.
And the way that I look at it in a bigger picture is sometimes when I'm having conversations with a buyer, I'm going to listen for emotional patterns, and I'm going to try to figure out what is actually preventing that person from really succeeding in life. Because it's not about the product or service or good or t-shirt or popsicle.
Sure.
It's never about that.
Yeah.
What it's about is like, okay, do they have some limiting beliefs that they need to address?
Sure.
And I'm just going to sit back and observe by me structuring my questioning.
Right.
So I never really try to worry about, hey, I need to hit a certain goal financially.
Yeah.
Once I made that shift, Jeremy, and I'm sure for yourself, you've had something similar. When I made that shift, it's like, how can I help them more?
Yeah.
That's where I don't have a lot of buyer remorse. I mean, I have people that have been around me for years, and every company I went and sold for, Jeremy, they just kept following me.
Yeah, it's you're focused on, you're not focused on making the sale and making a commission. You're instead focused on, whether there's a sale to be made in the first place. You're focused on, can I help this person solve their problems? And because of that, they feel that, right?
Yeah, it's based off their emotions.
Yeah.
If they feel that this, trust is a foundation.
Yeah.
That's the foundation. First, you got to break through all the emotional baggage that they're carrying. So a lot of people carry a lot of emotional baggage around.
Sure.
It doesn't really, because beliefs, where they all start, that's just it leads to an opinion. That's just somebody else in their social surroundings, maybe the area they were raised.
Yep.
That's how it all starts. And then it goes into their own opinion.
Yeah.
You know how those are, right? That's just awful. Then it goes into a strong conviction. And that's where and from there, that's where your behavior starts to happen. You have an habitual, pattern that is actually hurting you and preventing you. If you can actually remove that away from your buyer and then go, wait a minute, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Chris, I'm excited. But what I'm doing is I'm asking the questions of getting them to work out in their own mind how they can solve their own problem.
It's self-persuasion. It's the most persuasive. And that leads into my first question that I asked you. I'm glad you brought that up. So it kind of just strolls right into some of these questions that I know the listeners are going to have for you. So first question I wanted to ask is, what in your thoughts, like what is your advice? What do you feel is the most pervasive issue when it comes to sales in our day and age? What do you think is the biggest issue for salespeople?
That's a really good question. And a lot of people ask me similar ways of, structuring and framing, but perhaps the most pervasive one is also the hardest to correct.
Yeah.
I mean, you do a lot of sales training with people and companies.
Yeah.
And you meet someone that maybe has been around sales for 3 to 4 years and they've learned the old traditional ways of doing it. And you got to break that habit.
Yeah.
But I like to call this a newly married husband. Okay. When you have somebody like this. Okay.
Sure.
But most salespeople understand their role in complex sales is to use products and services to solve their problems. Right.
Yeah.
But many of them mistakenly believe as soon as they are able to help them and solve their problem with their benefits or features or products or service, the more effective they will become.
Sure.
It's not the case.
Yeah.
The best of the best salespeople that I've ever been around and look up to, like yourself, we don't focus on a solution or whatever we're selling. We're not product selling.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is, am I going to properly qualify you or disqualify you? Sure. A lot of people, when they sign up for a program, Jeremy, they think that they have the power to enroll or buy whatever I'm selling. That's not the case. Sure. They quickly learned that when I first call because I take it away from them.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a recommendation to see if you could qualify for XYZ.
Sure.
But mediocre salespeople, they can't wait, Jeremy, And I hear this a lot on calls. I break down so many phone calls for people. And they're like, wow, I don't even understand how you're able to break through that quickly. Sure. That one little nugget you gave me increased my numbers tenfold, because they're leading with, hey, I'm Chris from XYZ company and I sell products and services, and they're trying to jam it down someone's throat.
Well, it's like they're looking for an opportunity early in the conversation, usually within the first minute or two, to introduce their solution. And when you introduce your solution too early in the conversation, it always triggers what we call sales resistance from the potential customer. Right. And when you trigger sales resistance early in the conversation, that sale most of the time is over at hello. It's not over at your closing skills. It's over at the very beginning of the conversation. You hit it right on the head. You know, most salespeople are what I call product pushers. And what we train companies and salespeople, just like yourself, is how to become problem finders, and problem solvers. Because in our day and age, we've always, I read 1,000 sales training books, and they all say you got to be great at being a problem solver. Well, that's true. But in our day and age, you now have to be even better at problem finding. And what do I mean by that? That means uncovering challenges and problems that your prospect doesn't even know they have. Or maybe they know a little bit about it, but they don't think it's that big of an issue to solve right now. Because if you can't learn the right questions, like you said, to emotionally uncover their problems from their subconscious and bring them to their conscious mind where they become urgent for them to solve, it's impossible for them to buy from you so you can even solve their problems. You hit it. You hit it right on the head.
I couldn't agree any more with what you're saying with that, because the whole thing, I try to tell companies and salespeople, you're not there to solve their problem. Yeah. People talk about, overcoming objections. You don't overcome it. You deal with it. Yeah. And my job is not to sell you a product and service. My job is to find the right person for that product and service. Sure. If you do fall in line with some of those core attributes, great. But the main thing is, the problem with people, they want everything instantaneous. That's what I love about sales as well. Yeah. Is that you try to rush the buying time frame, and get them to a point where they have to make a decision and put them on a back foot. Have you ever boxed, Jeremy?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Boxed for a long time growing up. I'm from the South. That's what we do, is box.
Right.
So when you're boxing, if you're on your back foot, that means I'm on a defense. Right. You don't need to get them on a defensive type of stance. Sure. You want to get them neutral. I don't sell and I don't close on high or low. I close on neutral, because I want to make sure that this is going to be the right fit. Sure. But a lot of people that don't listen. Yeah. Like, I'm a chatty when I'm talking to you because I'm talking to another sales friend, and a sales colleague. So I'm talking to somebody that I have a relationship with. So I'm a lot more chatty. Yeah. When I'm on a call, or if I'm in a sales, encounter, like face-to-face in a corporation, whatever, I'm not really talking much. Yeah. But when I am talking, I'm listening. Yeah. And then I'm structuring how I'm going to structure my questions to get the core and the root of the problem. Yeah. You're not only going to raise rapport level, but you can literally leverage your buyer to do all the heavy lifting themselves.
Well, it's a push-pull dynamic,
Exactly.
Like we talk about, like you said, most salespeople and companies are actually still training their salespeople to be product pushers. And what do I mean by that? Most salespeople do what? They ask a few logical-based questions, and then they go into their sales pitch, right? So that's like taking a bucket of mud, throwing it up against the wall, hoping and praying that something we're going to say is going to trigger that prospect to want to buy from us. And I call that hopium. It's like a drug that so many salespeople on, where they just hope and pray that something they're going to say, features, benefits, blah, 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 is going to trigger that person to want them to buy. And it's such a hard and unpredictable way to make a living, especially in sales, 100%.
It's very difficult, very difficult. And what did you call it? Hopium?
Yeah, called hopium.
I like that. Did you trademark that? That's really good.
Trademark that. All right. So I want to go into this question. So we don't talk about this enough as well, and you kind of gave a warning there too, but what warning do you have for salespeople that could help them avoid some disasters in the future? So think back in your sales days when you were, 1099 salesperson, just chugging out huge numbers. What do you think is the biggest warning you have for salespeople so they just avoid some of the disasters out there?
Don't fall in love with the solution you're selling.
Yeah. I like that. That's
Be specific.
A lot of people would be like, "Oh, you gotta love what you're selling." But I like what you just said. Explain that.
No, that removes your emotions out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy, you can probably ask me and say, Chris, I got a really amazing opportunity for you. And I can't really do it with my book of business and what I have agreed upon and all the other things that I'm doing. I got an opportunity for you. And I'll go check out that opportunity. I'm not really too concerned about the product and service or good or whatever they're selling. It doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah.
Because the world is always evolving, is it not?
100%.
Every 2 seconds, bam, bam, bam. There's always a new best thing out there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is how I'm able to make an impact pretty quickly because I'm not really too concerned about the benefits and features and how it works.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to do is align your outcome with my sales process to make more of an impact quickly. Yeah. So I'm not really too concerned about the things that I can't control.
Yeah.
As a salesperson, we try to worry about things that we can't control all the time because there's so many moving parts.
Sure.
But if you fall in love with a solution or whatever that company is, what happens when it shuts down? What happened?
Yeah, you see that a lot. Salespeople, let's say they sell insurance and they're doing really well in insurance, and they get fired or the company gets bought out and they have their own job or it goes out of business, and then they go sell cars or financial services and they can't sell worth a crap. It's because they fall in love with that solution where they think that is the only solution. And you hit it right on the head. Top salespeople like yourself, like myself, we don't look a lot of times like I don't even know what the product or service is that I was selling when I didn't know the features and benefits. All I knew was how it solved their problems.
Right.
That's all I knew. And I knew the results they could get. That's all I needed to know. Once I found out what their problems were, I could match the solution to solve what they said they had to have changed. Nothing more, nothing less. That's really it.
The solutions, in my opinion, the benefits and features of whatever corporation business, okay, the end result. If you think about it this way and logically, the benefits and features are the fulfillment phase.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have to execute. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to teach them and educate the buyer on how they can effectively use whatever they're buying.
Yeah.
And sometimes it comes within. Change comes within.
Mm-hmm.
It's not external. It's internal.
Uh-huh.
And if you can actually get to the core and root of the problem, the real problem.
Yeah.
It's because you can, like this pen, I learned how to write a long time ago. I can use this pen anywhere.
Sure.
Okay. Because I know how to write.
Yeah.
But that gives you a little analogy with it. But the whole thing is that if you didn't learn how to write, now to use a pen.
Yeah.
Okay. So falling in love with a solution is never going to be, and that way you're able to consume so much more information on how to make more of an impact with your system within your sales process.
100%. How do you think salespeople in general, top salespeople, can stand out in the market and not be commoditized like so many salespeople are?
I get this question a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. And it's usually by someone that has the talent but looking to get to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
It usually was people that from my past reaching out to me and going, "Hey, Chris, I see you're doing big things. How can I get started?" I'm like, "Well, that was 5 years ago, bro. You should have followed me."
Right.
The best attribute for a salesperson and how to really stand out is confidence.
Yeah.
So the biggest question is, how can you teach a salesperson to develop the confidence to sell anything at a high level?
Yeah.
So that's usually what I come back with when I'm asked that question, because, I'll ask the person, pull them to the side, say, "Do you know how to be truly confident?
Yeah.
I mean, do you know how to feel powerful?" I said, "What about being on a sales call or in a sales encounter and it's literally irrelevant what a person comes back with when you ask a question? Have you ever had that type of situation?" Because that's what I experience.
Yeah.
Like the way that I ask questions and what I'm doing with my format in the framework, it doesn't really matter what they say. I've heard it all before.
Sure.
So if I can say anything about, how to really stand out, is just being extremely authentic, 100% authentic.
It's being authentic, and you hit it right on the head. It's your confidence, but you can only, you can only have confidence if you know really the psychology of how the buyer works.
Absolutely.
You understand, instead of using old school techniques that work against human behavior, where you're pushing them and they're pushing back, and it's like this little dance. if you learn selling techniques and if you learn the right questions that get them to pull you in, like you said, that gives you 100% certainty and confidence on every sales call because you're in complete control of the situation. Not where the prospect feels like you're in control. It's where you get them to feel they are in control, but
Right.
because of your questioning ability, you're leading them down the path you want them to go. And confidence is the key, but you can't get confidence from popping in a motivational guru CD and
Nah.
getting pumped up every day. That wears off. It's just your skills that you learn.
Because it takes a lot of energy to do something like that, Jeremy. Yeah. I mean, think about the energy that someone like that uses throughout the day. That's where you see a lot of salespeople like burn out.
Yeah.
Like you go on social media today and just type in hashtag success. You'll see it, or sales. You'll see all the boiler room tactics and all these ways. It's just, it makes me cringe because, and that's part of what my core value is that, you know, and it drives me. And I think my competitive advantage, my sister passed away when I was 15 and she was handicapped, born handicapped. She had a complication when going into labor. Not going to go into a long story with it.
Sure.
But when she passed away, I watched and experienced indirectly from the time that, you know, I was born, which she was 2 years older than me, until the day that she passed away. And she was only supposed to live to 4. And I watched her how to struggle through tubes of breathing.
Right.
So I will not accept anything less than the best for myself each and every given day. I will not accept the best, you know, from anybody else. I mean, you have to be able to convince me that you can't do something, and don't tell me you can't do something, because if I can do anything, I don't come from a lot of money, Jeremy, like yourself. I don't come from a lot of money.
Yeah, we weren't given a silver spoon, that's for sure.
Exactly. No, at all. I mean, I don't even think we had a spoon. It's probably a
well, no, I always say I had a plastic spoon from Walmart.
spork. You know, spork. Yeah.
Exactly.
But the whole thing is that's what drives me. But when I learned that to take all the bad and all the trauma and all the things that I went through in my life, those were opportunities for me to grow through pain. When you push through pain and you actually can see the other side and experience your prize, you're unstoppable. That's where you turn yourself into another version of yourself. Yeah, like, I'm sure you have a lot of goals and things that you write down and the things that you want to accomplish one day.
Sure.
We're never going to stop, Jeremy. People like us, we're never going to stop. If you put a phone inside, you're going to put a phone on my casket, okay? Because I'm not going to stop, because there's always something else I'm trying to accomplish. And it doesn't go with just business. And you need to align it with a part of everything who you are, and being 100% authentic. Yeah, that takes a lot of courage.
It's always learning 100% of the time.
Always.
You know, I read 3 books a month. So I read 36 books a year since I was 21. You know, I now just hit the 40 mark. So that's a lot of books. It's a lot of knowledge. And I mainly read in like sales and persuasion and those type of things, but I'll read some personal development and those type of things. But without learning and ever learning, there's no way I'd be a shell of what I am. Not to say that I'm so awesome, because I'm still learning. Like in 5 years from now, I'm going to be completely different than I am right now. You know, and that's the beauty of learning. This leads us into the next question. What do you think the major difference is in between selling 20 plus years ago compared to selling in our day and age right now? What do you think the major differences are?
Customers are caught on consumer reports. I mean, you got the internet. Yeah. We live in a digital world with a Stone Age brain.
Right.
Okay. So you have to keep that in the back of your mind, is that they're not interested in being pressed into purchasing something with no knowledge other than that point of contact you as a salesperson. Yeah. You know, adopting the right sales approach for any salesperson is all about developing what works for you. What works for me is not going to work for you, Jeremy, because you're a different individual. Sure. What works for you is not going to work for me wholly, because I'm a different individual. Discovering what works for you will be challenging, considering there are tons of techniques trained by old salespeople that can't even do it today.
Well, that's a thing that most people don't think about. They read a book from a sales trainer, and no offense, because I grew up on some of these books in the very beginning, but I quickly found that some of their techniques would work, and I would make some sales. But I also started to notice that when I did a few things they told me to do in their books and training, it actually did the opposite. It actually triggered sales resistance. You know, when I was learning those skills when I was 21, 22 in college selling, my major is behavioral science and human psychology. So I was learning from behavioral science, human behavior and why people make decisions, why or not someone is persuaded. But I was also learning from these old sales gurus in my company, these traditional selling skills, and they were completely opposite. And I'm like,
Right.
how does this make any sense? Like,
It doesn't make sense.
we're working against human behavior when we give them the option close or we assume the sale, especially if it's in a complex selling environment. And, if you think about it, 20 plus years ago, the company, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have social media. Like we didn't have social media 20 plus years ago. So the way people learned about your company or products is they would send out the salesperson to educate the public about products. That's how people expected to learn. They were educated. But now, like you said, with the power of technology, the ease of the internet, especially social media, we live in a completely different era. I call that the information age buyer. The consumer already knows about your company. They know about your products, your services. They know about your pricing. They know who your competitors are. They know how long you've been in business. They know everything about you by simply doing a Google search on their freaking smartphone.
Right.
Because of that newfound power, they no longer will be manipulated or pressured by pushy salespeople because they know they have many options to choose the exact product or service that you sell.
The jig is up.
Yeah,
the jig is up.
The jig is up, and I see this because companies come to us and they're like, "Oh, we paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for this, huge sales trainer that everybody knows, like all over social media, and our sales got worse." And I'm like, "Well, why do you think they got worse? You're learning techniques from when they sold in the 80s, and it's 2020. They haven't sold anything for 25 years. What do you expect?"
They don't expect anything. I think the best entrepreneurs come from sales, in my opinion, sales or finance. If you understand how to tap into someone's emotions and do it morally and ethically, keyword here, ethically, because I'm not going to recommend something for someone that I don't believe is going to help them or, increase the quality of their life. It's not the case. I've turned away more people than I've sold, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But the main thing is adopting the right approach within yourself, but doing things the way that you want to do them. When you're talking with a company and they go, okay, I need to make XYZ return, as in revenue a month to be able to hit my goals. But where's your strategy to get that goal? Because if you change the goal line, you change the outcome. What's the strategy? You can't have the same strategy. I love companies. I love companies walking into one. And I like to shop them, and I'm sure you do something similar. And they tell me, this is the way we've always done it. And then I'll say, where's your scripts? And they hand me like 10 different scripts.
Yeah, sure.
and all of it leads to nothing. And what it leads to is a dial tone.
At least a numbers game, and you got to make 100 calls, and they're more focused on the quantity of calls rather than when we come in and train companies, we're focused on the quality of each call. Like finding out, can we solve this person's problems? Do they have a need? Can we help them? We're not focused on stuffing our solution down their throat and hoping 1 out of 100 people buy that we're calling. Why would you waste your time on that? It makes no sense. This leads to my next question. What do you think is the role of trust? You talked a little bit about it, but what is the role of trust in sales and persuasion in that process in our day and age? What is that role of trust?
It's everything. It's everything, Jeremy. It ties into who I am as a person, even as a seller or, a businessman. If you don't have trust, you don't have anything. And especially in this day and age of a way of selling or, just being a business, trust is literally the foundation. Sellers who focus on advice, persuasion, and being proactive without considering how much trust they built first, your sales efforts crumble, Jeremy. Completely crumble.
Trust is king.
Right. I mean, as trust grows and deepens, great things happen in relationships. It doesn't matter if buyer seller relationships and sales. I'm talking about in any relationship. So when you're selling, this goes out to all listeners. If you're selling and you're listening to this, focus on building a trusting relationship with your buyers. And then they not only be more likely to listen to you or be more inclined to listen to what you have to say and your advice.
Right.
They'll be more willing to do it at your own pace and step their game up to your level.
100%. What do you think causes trust in the sales process? Like what can a salesperson do listening to this that will gain trust? Because we know it's not going to the office and talking about the weather or who won the game last night. Every average salesperson does that, right? It's almost like a turnoff. What do you think helps build that trust?
Consistency.
Yeah.
Of that connection.
Yeah.
If you focus on, like building that relationship,
Mhm.
but I don't look at a buyer as that's the person that's going to buy that product,
Yeah.
or I'm trying to sell them at some point, or do
Sure.
something like that. What I'm trying to focus on is like, how can I make a huge impact in their life?
Yeah.
Rather than making an impact within that sales process. And if I do that consistency, consistent over time within that sales process, the trust level just keeps stacking up on each other.
Stacking up. You're consistent, and I also agree. And I know you believe this. It's all about your listening skills. And when I say listening skills, I think a lot of salespeople that think like, "Oh, I'm a great listener." No, you're not. No, you're not a listener at all. You just listen for a break in the conversation to do your sales pitch.
Right.
Listen just to say, what am I going to ask them next? You're not really listening. So it's your listening skills and your questioning ability that make you appear in their mind as someone who is there for them to help them solve those challenges, to get them results. They don't feel like you're just there trying to sell them something, because when your buyer feels you're just there to sell them, there will always be resistance, and you will always be commoditized, and they'll always negotiate you down on prices. It's just the way it is in our day and age. You have to be what we call a trusted authority in their mind, and that can only be, like you said, being consistent, showing up, but asking the right questions at the right time in the conversation that get them emotionally attached to solving the problem. 100%.
I couldn't agree anymore. One thing before we move on to the next one. I want everyone to understand it's a huge opportunity. It's a golden nugget for people to understand. Once you realize and identify that there's 3 conversations going on as you're speaking to your clients, there's a point of view conversation going on in their mind, there's an emotional conversation going on in their head, and there's an egotistical.
Yeah.
When you start listening for patterns of self-destruct that they're actually doing themselves, game's over. I mean, it doesn't matter what you're selling.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. How does science play a role in effective selling? Is it just like, just show up and throw up and it's going to work? Or is there actually some data and science behind what we're talking about?
No, there's a lot of data behind it, because there are different parts of your brain that control different parts of you as a human. The most powerful thing that people possess is your brain. That brain is very powerful if you feed it the right information or right things. A lot of people go out there and they use so much energy and focus on the wrong things. I believe whatever you focus on, you can accomplish. That's why I try to audit what I work on and how much time that I spend, because time is the only non-renewable resource. But the science behind it is that when you tap into someone's emotions and you understand how to do that morally and ethically, it plays a huge part when buying, when it's not surprising research. 30%, when you're happy, you'll spend 30% more money. Walt Disney. I don't know if you've ever studied him. Have you?
A little bit, yeah. But I know where you're going with that. Keep going. I want listeners to hear this.
Yeah. Walt Disney understands it's the happiest place on earth. That's just a perception. I mean, I went to a couple, vacations with my parents, and they got in an argument inside the happiest place on earth. But the perception is the happiest place on earth. You're going to spend more money. Yeah. People will spend more and do whatever you ask if you keep them excited, but not keeping them excited, but pulling them down and back to reality and making a right decision. Yeah.
I agree 100%. It's all the science, so many people just go out there and sell, and they think because somebody told them this is the right way, that it's just the right way. So they keep doing it over and over again, expecting to sell more or get a different result, which is the definition of insanity. They just keep saying the same things over and over. And then the sales trainer's like, just go work harder, call more leads. I'm like, that's the weakest thing. Like if your sales trainer's telling you need to just work harder and call more leads, that's just because they don't know how to train you. Like what they're training you doesn't really work for our day and age. When they blame it on you're not working hard. Every salesperson I know really works hard. They show up, they call their leads. I mean, salespeople, when I'm at events and I say, how many of you in here work hard? You call your leads, you show up on time. You know how many people in the audience raise their hand? Every person, everybody works hard. But then when I say, how many of you in here, I want you to stand up. How many of you in here are making all the money you've ever wanted to make as a salesperson? Nobody stands up. So I'm like, okay, so what I think I heard all of you say is that hard work doesn't mean you're going to make a lot of sales. Doesn't mean you're going to make a lot of money. How many of you know people that work their butts off in sales that are broke? Raise your hand. Everybody raises their hand. A lot of them, it's because it's them. It's your skills. It's what you're saying, or more importantly, not asking, that's causing your prospects to run the other way from you. And that leads us into one of these last questions I wanted to ask you. Why are sales, in your thoughts, what's your advice? Why are most sales lost? Not necessarily by the prospect, but by the salesperson. Why are they to blame for losing sales?
Two reasons. They get in their way of their own sale.
Yeah.
I always try to keep it in mind and align with the sales process. If it's not going to get me to the outcome that we're both desiring, I'm not going to ask that question. I'm not going to entertain it. The second one is the lack of clarity with their buyers and not explaining. Anchoring and framing are the two best skills anybody could ever develop to be able to master sales. But as we both know, you'll never be able to master anything. That's why I love the grind. I fall in love with the grind. And to go back to your thing is that not all leaders are readers, but readers are leaders.
100%.
You got to get more knowledge. And it's not about you losing the sale because of a situation. It's you losing a sale because you didn't do something right.
Well, and the one thing that always, like, when salespeople, we go into companies and they're like, oh, buyers are liars. Like, that's one term I can't stand, because I'm like, you're not understanding the reason why they're lying to you. The reason why they're lying to you is that you are using sales techniques that are triggering that from them. But they don't trust you. So they are lying to you because, you're so excited about what you're selling on the outside. Keep your excitement on the inside. We call it internal enthusiasm. Keep excited. Like you said earlier, be neutral. You're just trying to find out if you can help them. In the early conversation, your whole attitude is, I'm not quite sure I can even help you yet. I'd have to ask a few more questions to see if what we're doing would even work for you, because I'm not quite convinced yet that I could even help you. And when people feel that, they're like, oh, and they start to open up, because they're like, this person's here as a problem finder and they're going to solve my problems. So never say buyers are liars. Always understand that the reason why they only lie to you is because you're using techniques, you're saying things that are triggering that. So
they don't trust you.
When you learn certain questions that work with human behavior, people don't lie to you. They open up to you. And that's when you separate yourself from everybody else that's selling what you're selling 100% of the time.
If you do this, and if you study this skill and work on this, you can do this effortlessly. And it's so easy. Like me getting on a call, I can break through pretty quickly. When you're what you did right there is like, I don't even know if I can help you yet. You're reframing, you're pre-framing the next phase of me asking more information. I'm going to need more information from you. So now it's their job to sell you.
Because you're not really, and I say that because I don't really know if I can help them in the beginning. I'm like being real. It's not a technique. Like, I really don't know if I
understand. I completely agree.
More about what you're doing, because I might not be able to, and I might be able to give you a better recommendation. And when you're open like that, sales or prospects are so open to you. Now, last question, and then we'll let you get back to work. I know you're busy. I see you have a wide range client base, different industries. Does that change how you train people now?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I train people first on themselves. What your technique is. And change comes within, right? For me to make an impact with any type of industry, what I know and what I teach and what you teach, it's universal. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution for every salesperson. I need to look at your mechanics. Like, what are your skills? Like, do you have skills? Like, why do you usually go this way? But once I am able to remove, just like I'm doing with a client or a student or whatever, a buyer, I do the same thing with a salesperson and a sales leader. I'm like, are you a manager or a leader? We're about to find out. You don't need to tell me. I'm about to discover this. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to start digging into their emotional patterns.
Right.
and figuring out what's actually preventing them. So to answer your question, I train them all the same way, but
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, 100% of the time. And just the last question, congratulations, on your company, your consulting company now that you have. And really, the biggest reason why you're able to do that is because of your success as a salesperson. You making 150,000 a month in straight commissions, folks. This is not salaried position. Chris, when he was in sales, was making 150,000 a month consistently, commissions, 100% commissions, helping people solve their problems. What's the biggest just one big piece of advice? Like, what do you think separated you from, hey, you were making 100,000 or 150,000 a month. Other salespeople in your industry were maybe making 5,000 a month or 8,000 a month, which, 8,000 a month's not bad. But what do you think separated you the most from, you're selling the same thing, you've got the same amount of leads. How were you doing that compared to they were doing small numbers?
Their outcome was different than mine completely. I was dedicated to become 1% better every day at what I was doing.
Yeah.
Every day. There's not a day that goes by I don't measure and reassess my results from the day prior.
Yeah.
3 months ago, whatever. But when you actually adopt that type of mindset and you hold yourself accountable to something like that, I'm grinding. Like everybody's, taking days off. I'm still grinding.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I'm on a phone or doing some type of sales thing or business. I'm still working on myself.
You're learning more. You're
exactly
learning to get to the next level.
I say a lot of it is like, keep moving, keep growing, keep learning, because you have to keep moving to keep learning. You got to move, man. Like, you got to hold yourself accountable. So it's not really about the techniques or skills. It comes within.
Yeah.
Competitive advantage.
100%. When I was in sales, when I got into sales, when I was 21, I'd get up an hour early every day to study sales, an hour every freaking day. Saturday mornings, my friends were out Friday night doing whatever they were doing. I was in bed early because I was getting up early to learn sales. I out-earned them 30-1, and they were in the same company. Same thing now. I get up at 5:15, 5:30 in the morning because I dedicate that first hour to learning more. How can I learn more skills to train more salespeople and companies to get bigger results? You hit it right on the head. So, Chris, thank you for being on this show. Like, amazing information. I'm so, like, I know I'm going to get a lot of feedback from people like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. So I want to have you out of here again. How can people learn more about you and what you offer as far as your training? Like, do you have some place they can go, a website or something? Or
I do. I have a lot of different ways to get in touch with me. I'm a pretty easy person to get in touch with. I usually go through a couple different teams, but if you just Google me, Chris Ross Companies, you type in that, you usually find me on Google. But the best way to Chris Ross,
ChrisRoss. I just want to make sure they're Googling the right name.
Right. Or just go to social media. This is Chris Ross. See how the sales way they're doing it? This is Chris Ross. But if you go to This is Chris Ross on any social media platform, but the best way to get more information from me is probably join my podcast. Go on the Win-Win Effect. We're on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, every platform you can use.
Perfect.
But listen more from me. Then I give different types of trainings, but I'm easy to find, Jeremy. I'm easy.
Perfect. I love that. I want everybody to do that, listening to that. Follow this man. When you're learning from somebody who made 7 figures a year, not just he was selling 7 figures, he was making 7 figures in sales. So he was selling multi-millions of dollars a year for companies. And you learn those type of skills, you're going to get better just by tuning in and paying attention. 100%. Chris, thanks for the interview.
It was a pleasure. Pleasure's all mine. I really appreciate it, Jeremy. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Talk to you soon.